Welcome to our tutorial on Qcaid's reusable components. In previous videos, we have constructed our strategies, adding elements from the palette or creating variables. In this tutorial, I will show you how to create components, fragments of logic that can be reused as many times as needed in any number of strategies. We can create a component in the same way that we create a new strategy. We can create a component in the same way we create a strategy, by clicking on the Create New Component button. As an example, we'll calculate the typical price. Once we create a new component, we'll see how components are shown in the project tree alongside the strategies, with a distinctive icon. Double-click on it, and we will see the canvas where we'll create our first component. The palette shows the elements exclusive to components. A component must have at least one input and one output, but it can have as many as we want. The typical price is defined as the average of a candle's high, low, and close values. To obtain this average, we first need to add the three values and then divide the resulting figure by 3. We add the values using a summator operator and then divide the result by 3 using a product operator. We connect the result to the output and save it, and the component is ready to use. To see how to incorporate this new component into strategy, we create a copy of the RSI strategy we've been using in these tutorials and open it. We are going to calculate the RSI of the typical price instead of the candle close. Thus, we need to select the connection and delete it. Then, we add the component as with any other element by clicking and dragging it from the project tree. This way, we create a copy of the component in the strategy. Hovering on the inputs, we can see their names as we have defined them in the component editor. We connect it, then save, and the strategy modification is completed. When a component is incorporated into strategy, it is done by creating a copy of the original component. Modifications made in the original component, such as changing a value, do not affect the copy. We can open the copy of the component in the strategy by double-clicking on the plus sign. There, we can see that the value has not been changed. In the same way, changes to components copied into strategy do not affect the original component. The Editor tab of components in the strategy has an icon of a darker shade than components in the project tree to help telling them apart. Components can have configurable properties too. To illustrate this, we will create a smooth version of the RSI indicator. We will do this by applying a moving average to the output of an RSI. In order for the indicator parameters to appear as properties of the component, we need to set their values as variables. To this end, we create two variables in the component and give them the desired names for the component's properties. We configure the indicators with the variables we just created, and save. Once we place this new component in our strategy, we will see the parameters with the names we set in the variables. As per usual, we can set these parameters as fixed values or with variables. We can also create a component directly inside a strategy. We just need to drag the empty component element to the palette. We can edit it by clicking on the plus symbol. In this example, we will use this component to group the two components we have recreated before. We begin by adding the inputs and outputs. Then we drag the components from the project tree and set the connections. As you can see, components can be used freely inside other components. We create the variables anew so that the smooth RSI parameters appear once again as parameters in this new component. We give them the same names again. Then, we set them as the values of the smooth RSI component's properties. To change the component's name, we clear the selection by going into Edition mode and clicking an empty zone in the canvas. Then, we can set the name in the Properties view. Back in the strategy, we will see that the component appears with the name and properties we have just defined. Now, we just have to remove the elements it will replace and connect it. These are some ways you can use components to reuse and organize the logic of your strategies. Remember, you have at your disposal all the other videos on strategy creation with Qcaid, in which you will find many examples on how to create and combine rules. Thank you very much for watching.